Welcome to the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. I'm your host, Anna Gray. The best thing about being a nurse and entrepreneur over the last 25 years are the relationships I've developed and the people I've met. As a legal nurse consultant, I wanted you to hear from those amazing people in the legal and healthcare communities. I wanted you to hear who they are and to celebrate them with me. Get ready to be inspired, informed, and empowered. Let's dive into the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting Podcast. Let me tell you, I am so incredibly excited to have I'm sure that you've seen her around your social media, and she just gives such great advice. And she's been in this world. We're going to get to know her. But Jacque, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. And I'm sure that there are so many people that cannot wait to hear your story. So thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you for such a warm welcome. I was excited when you reached out and said, "Hey, can I have you on the podcast?" That really spoke volumes. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I see you every day on social media, and we've had some great conversations back and forth through posts and comments, and we have some obviously mutual friends on that world. And I was like, you know what? Why have I not asked you to be on this podcast? Because clearly you know your stuff and people know you. And I'm sure there are so many people out there that just want to know who you are and where you came from and how long you've been here and all of those things. And I know that we have a lot in common as well. So let's start off by sharing where in the world you are coming from. Where on this globe are you coming from?
So I live in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, which is about an hour and a half from the Minneapolis airport. Mm-hmm. So closer to Minneapolis than anywhere else.
Right, really. Right. Yeah, I have friends that are from there. I think they're from there. I've been playing hockey for the last 26 years. I picked it up as a 25-year-old, and I have a lot of friends from the Midwest, and some of my closest friends are from Wisconsin. So I love that. No wonder I think you're fantastic because you live in Wisconsin. Now, have you always been in Wisconsin, or did you start somewhere else?
Well, I was a St. Paul, Minnesota baby for only 2 years of my life. The rest of my time I've been in Wisconsin. So I've been everywhere from Wisconsin Dells, where I actually grew up. I grew up selling lemonade to the duck drivers as they went by my house.
Yeah. And I can say I've been there. We took our kids there when they were about 5, around that age, 5, 7, 8, I don't know. But I've been there, and we had a great time. It's so funny. It's so random. I've only been there once. So
it's so much fun, and it's so much different now. And now you can go there in the winter and stay overnight and have all these water slide parks. When I grew up there, and I'm not that old yet, we had to go to Baraboo, Wisconsin for our grocery shopping, library, etc. in the winter because everything shut down in the Dells. Oh. Now it's not like that. Now it's year round.
Right. Vacation town. Even when we went, there was very little. There was a Starbucks, and that was about it from what I remember. So yeah, everything has gotten big, I'm sure. And amusement parks are really big right now. So I'm sure it doesn't surprise me. Okay. So you've been in Wisconsin most of your life. Now tell me a little bit more about your schooling. Did you go into nursing right away? Did you do something else? How did you decide to go down the nursing route?
Well, I always knew I was going to be a nurse from the time I was in second grade. So in second grade, our teacher said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I told Mrs. Holly at that time, "I'm going to be a nurse." So I always just knew.
Mhm.
And then when I was older, I graduated from a private high school, Christian high school, and went off to college on a scholarship for volleyball. But I was not prepared. I, I was gone for a semester and I was crying. I need to come home. I can't handle this because I had come from such a small school, and then being thrown into a big university did not sit well with me. So I came home and decided that I would be a nursing assistant. And then while I was a nursing assistant on the weekends, I went to school during the week to be a surgical tech.
Aha.
And so then after I was a surgical tech, I moved to Milwaukee
Mhm.
and worked in one of their trauma centers in Milwaukee, and then moved back closer to home to Portage, Wisconsin, so a smaller area. And by that time, I was a first assist. So I had about 13 years under my belt as a first assist and as a surgical tech,
Mhm.
between teching and first assisting,
Mhm.
and thought, okay, I need to just stop being insecure
Mhm.
and do this, right? I
Mhm.
mean, I'm
Mhm.
already here. I know what I want to do. I've known for years, but the insecurity part got
Yeah.
me. And so I went back for my associate degree,
Yeah.
and then after having my associate degree, I went back for my bachelor's. After my bachelor's, then I got my master's in healthcare administration. And so I kind of, it was like in 7 years, my life just like took off. Once I made the
Mhm.
decision that my life is going to change, I
Mhm.
changed it. I got
Mhm.
divorced. I went to
Mhm.
school. I, I
Wow.
moved to different towns. So I went
Yeah.
from Portage after 15 years of being there, went to Green Bay for a
Mhm.
couple of years.
Mhm.
And then I ended up in Eau Claire.
Wow. Okay. So we're going to unravel this a little bit because we have a lot in common. So so it's just so funny that we both started out as techs. I started out as a surgical tech. You started out as a surgical tech. The interesting thing is that you worked as a first assist as a tech in Wisconsin because out in California, it is not we and to this day, we don't have that option is to be an assist and a surgical tech. It was always in order to be an assist, you had to be a nurse. So, because otherwise, I probably would have stayed as a tech for many years as well, because everybody, I remember this, everybody as a tech was like, I want to be an assist, I want to be an assist. But in California, it wasn't possible. So that's very interesting. We have very similar paths as a tech. I know that there are a lot of techs out there, and I see them every day that have the same thought of, you know, it's a long process. I don't know if I can do it. All of my, they took classes in junior college or whatever. All of my prerequisites have expired, all of those things. But now I am seeing this influx of techs who are making that decision after being techs for about the same amount of time as you and saying, you know what, I'm going to do it. It's worth it. My kids are getting older, da 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 da. Um, so you took that leap. I took that leap about year 5, but I did it a little bit backwards because I already had my bachelor's degree. I did go away to school and I had a degree in exercise physiology. I wanted to go to
Oh,
PT school and I couldn't do anything with my degree, but I had a boyfriend who had a friend who went to tech school. And I was like, well, that sounds interesting. And that sounds like a job with my degree, but I've got to go to adult school now. So I went backwards and I went to tech school at an adult school and with a bachelor's degree. So it was like the next step. Well, duh, I need to. Why wouldn't I go to nursing school? So I had the extra push of like, I'm already halfway there. I might as well go, but I really loved being a tech. I mean, some
I did
days
too.
some days
I
I wish
really
I was
did.
still still a tech, you know? That
Yeah.
skill set, it's a skill set that makes you a much more valuable nurse, and I don't think anybody would disagree with that, right? I mean, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, and I don't, unless you've been there, I think it's hard for people to understand,
Yeah,
the world of surgery is just so different. But when you are a tech and the surgeon that you work with, you're so in sync with them or her that they're not even asking for things. They're
yeah,
holding out their hand. You can read them, you know
yeah,
exactly what
the
they
best.
want. That kind of unity
Yeah,
is unheard of.
yeah,
People they can't understand it. And as a tech, you have that. As a first assist, you have that. It's a little different than being a circulator,
yeah,
where you can still have your surgeons that appreciate you and are glad that, oh God, oh good, you're in my room today.
right.
But it's not on the same level as
Yeah,
being on that inner scrub circle. And unfortunately, for some, they're like, "Oh, you're so and so's favorite," and
mhm,
they become these cliques in the OR, which
mhm,
I
mhm,
really do not like. And a lot of it really is inspired by surgeons,
right,
who pick their favorites, which makes it harder
yeah,
on the rest of the team.
yeah,
So from you know, being outside of it, looking in, I that part of it I don't like, because as we look at having unity and collaboration in ORs and making it a safe place for coworkers, those clicks, even though some think, well, if we give the surgeon who they want in the room, it's better for patient care. At the same time, it can breed contempt among the
mhm,
people that are not the chosen ones for that room. And I'm sure, I mean, it's the same in every OR. And I'm sure,
it
Anna,
is.
you know exactly what I'm talking about.
It absolutely is. Goes across the board where it does stem from the surgeons, and then a lot of the times it is kind of just to shut them up, you know? Okay, fine. Take your person, makes my job easier as the person that's running the board, then I don't have to deal with it. But you're right. It not only creates this animosity with, being the only one in that room or you always get what you want, um, but I also think that it takes away from those that want to learn, from
Yes.
that particular surgeon. So it's not fair in many reasons. Um, in my opinion, mainly because everybody should be able to do every case and do it well. Now, that's an argument in itself. And I love the fact that you said, as a tech, there is this, and we call it the dance, right? It's
Yeah.
like a dance. And and I really hate to say this, but I see it on a daily basis that we've lost. And I don't know that if this is true across the board, but we've lost that focus of it being a dance. And I see a lot of reactionary, handing of instruments. But there was this pride in knowing the dance. The
Yeah.
goal was always, and I remember teaching this as a tech to other techs, the goal was always to not say a word. That was it. It was like, if you could get through a case without saying a word, each of you, then you've mastered the dance. And I think that over time, and I hope that that's just what I see, is that it's that piece of surgery has been kind of lost in translation. I think that the focus of that has kind of changed over time. And I always hope every day that I'm in the OR, I always hope that it comes back. I always watch the text and see and hope that, they're playing along with the dance because it just makes for, but it makes for better patient care, makes for a smoother environment. It makes for, better OR times, if everybody's on the same page and nobody's asking for things and they know what they want, they think ahead of the time. I always tell people, think 2, 3 steps ahead. Um, It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And you only know if you've gone through that and you've been on both sides, on all of the sides, and you watch it and you see it. So it's really nice that we share that same love, because there's very few people out there that know what that is. It from afar, you would never know. So I love
Yes.
that you share that.
The other thing in the OR that I think, because our main goal in healthcare is to be in tune with patient care and doing what's best for the patient. So if we can get in tune with what this patient needs, even as a tech or a circulator, because a lot of times as techs, you're more interested in making sure you have all the instrumentation you need, which is part of it, right? But if we keep in mind that this is really about good patient care, then our focus can get back onto the basics of why we're there. And that is, this patient might be asleep, they might be sedated, but what can we do to make this best for them? What's the best thing? And the best thing is to try to get in tune with your surgeon so that you make their life easier, so that they give the best possible care. If they're distracted or things occur where you who are in that room are not in tune, then there's an issue. And that's what I have seen that kind of concerns me, are places where let's play the music louder, let's talk about the weekend, let's have a gay old time in these rooms. And I'm not against having fun, really. I love to have fun. But when the OR loses its perspective and they forget that there's a human being right there on that table, that irks me. That totally, I have no patience for that, because you've now made this about you, and it's not about you. For 8 hours, 12 hours, however long you signed in, this is not about you and your comfort. This is about the patient. And that is where healthcare has lost it to some degree. And not every hospital is the same, nor every department. But I think as human beings, we become so interested in what we ourselves can get that we forget that, you know what, any day we walk into a hospital to take care of them, we are better than the person we're taking care of. You're not in that hospital bed. You're not the one having surgery. You're not the one having to deal with those issues. So leave your baggage at the door. And when you walk through those doors, just make up your mind, it's not about you. And if anyone has a problem doing that, what I highly recommend is that they go on a mission trip. You go on one mission trip where you are completely stripped of most of your worldly goods. You're away from your family in a foreign country, taking care of those that have nothing. It totally will change your perspective when you come back.
Right.
Completely.
Yeah, I have not gone on a mission trip. It was always, I had little kids at the time. But I know, and I have friends that have, and they'll say the exact same thing. It completely changes you and your perspective of things when you get back home.
Right.
It is very easy for people, especially young people, to pull themselves out of that environment and not see what we are actually doing here, and handling patients and their fears and all of the above. And granted, yes, they're asleep at the at one particular time. Once they're asleep, things change, the party lights go on, and I agree with you. And maybe it's because we can consider ourselves old school. And it's every day is a challenge for me to help remind people of that, because I see over and over that I am, one now becoming one of the dinosaurs there. All of my friends that are mentors to me have all retired.
Mm-hmm.
And now I am that person. And you can only take on so many of them without being the bad guy. And there is an interesting dance about being in the OR as as someone that's been there, 25 years plus,
Yeah.
you don't want to be the nurse ratchet. Oh, there she goes again. She's telling me what to do, blah, blah, blah. So there's this dance that I like to ride and be not trying to be that person, but also, hey guys, do you want to learn the right way? Do you want me to make your life easy? Because I can see now it can be very easy to be that nurse ratchet because what you see after all these years, you're, oh my gosh, am I really seeing? Oh my God, you can be that person very easily. I try really, really hard not to, but I imagine that I come across probably not so kind sometimes anymore because you've just, you work really hard for your patients, and when people don't take it seriously or things like that, it's yeah, it bugs me too.
Yeah,
You didn't
I
come from
think
that.
that right. And I really do think the simplest thing for people, no matter if they're in management, not in management, whatever role they fill, is just to remember that to somehow find ways to set the ego at the door.
Yeah,
Really, really. If we as healthcare providers can walk into the hospital, into the clinic, and set our ego aside and set
exactly.
aside our selfish ambitions for those 8 hours and be the best you can be for the care of that patient. All hopefully 98% of us went into healthcare to help other people.
Right.
That's why we're there.
Yeah.
And so it really, if having been in the oars for so long and then moving into management and then into C-suite, it doesn't matter. No matter where I have been, it comes down to the same thing. We as human beings need to stop thinking about ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Really.
Yeah,
That's it.
exactly. Yeah. And I mean, it's been like that since the beginning of time. So you'd think we'd
Right.
learn by now. You'd think we'd all learn by now.
So
Okay.
if,
Yeah,
yeah,
go ahead. No, I
I
love
mean,
this discussion. We can talk about this all day because
we can move on.
no, there are egos. I mean, we've been, lots of stories of egos, and you would think by now that that people would put it aside because at the end of the day, it's the patients that matter. It's what we do for a living, and it's exceptional because we have someone's I don't want to be great. We have someone's life at hand here, like
Right.
you guys, remember, this is a big deal. This is not, we're not this where we work and what we do is kind of a big deal. And
Yeah.
I do think that we forget that as well. So I love okay, so let's move forward. I mean, we can talk about the OR all day long, I'm sure. But you mentioned the C-suite. Let's talk about your trajectory after the OR and going into management. What did that look like for you?
So I was actually approached.
Mhm.
um, a director of mine was leaving her position, and I had become a nurse in 2003. So this is in 2006. So 3 years later of being a nurse, I'm approached and said, "Hey," well, at that time she wasn't leaving yet, but she said, we're expanding. I'd like to make you a supervisor."
Mhm.
And I said, "Are you sure?" And she said, "Yeah." So it was over all of surgical services, so 5 departments. And I said, "I've only been a nurse for 3 years." And she said, "Well, I think that you have the quality that we need, and other people have also brought it forward that they think you'd be good at it. So that's how I got into it.
Mhm.
And I was not very good at it because once I became a supervisor, I felt like I had to control everything. I felt like I had to make everyone perfect. And if I saw that people were wasting time on the company's dollar or whatever, it irked me, right? And when I was alongside them, it didn't irk me as much because I just did my own, I'm just going to do my own thing. whatever. But once you're the supervisor, you feel it's on you, not realizing that as you do that, you really are choking people. You have to allow people to breathe and be who they are. And years later, you look down the road, see that. And so then from there, I still had my associate's degree. And so I thought, you know what? I'm not staying here forever. I've got to move on. There's more out there for me. So then I got my bachelor's, and I don't know if you're a praying person or not, but faith is huge for me. So I just have to add that in here, is that I was at a crossroads. So I finished my bachelor's. My director had left, and I just threw up a prayer and said, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Do I stay here or do I go? And I had walked into the director's office, which nobody was using at the time. It had been closed for months, but there was a book in there I needed. I went in there, the phone rang, and I picked it up, and they were asking for my director. I said, my director's not here. And they said, well, who are you? I said, I'm Jackie, supervisor, while kind of the interim while we get things going here. They said, well, would you be interested? We have an opening for an OR manager at a level 2 trauma center. And I said, well, I'm not opposed to interviewing. And so that door that opened, because I happened to be in that office at the right time, is why I went for the interview. So I had interviewed where I worked for the director position, and I had also gone to this other facility to then be interviewed. And I took the other job because it would give me more depth and growth. And so that then led to me having realization that I really do not like middle management.
Yeah.
I do not like it.
Yep.
I'm hands-on. I want to be with people, and I want to care for people. And now I'm having to deal. I felt like a therapist all the time. And no matter where I turned, no one was happy. Those above me, those below me, the surgeons in my office constantly. And of course, it's all my fault that the OR is not perfect, according to the surgeons, that were, anyway. And I remember just saying, why am I going through this?
Yeah.
Like it was the worst 2 years of my ever career.
Yeah.
And I remember laying on my bed, just going, there has to be a reason why I'm going through the most difficult season of my life. The most stretching, horrendous time. And I just thought, I can't do this anymore. So at one point, I decided to either take the legal nurse consulting course or go back for my master's in healthcare administration. And then at that point is when I decided, you know what, I'm just going to take the master's right now. And so I went down that path and quit my job. And within 2 hours of my post being out on LinkedIn, or not on LinkedIn, I love LinkedIn, obviously, out on one of the sites, I'm not going to talk about it, but on one of the sites, within 2 hours, I had a phone call. And the person who called was a recruiter. And she said, we'd like for you to come and interview for a CNO position at a surgical hospital. And what's interesting about it is that at my old job, I had actually talked to the CNO to find out what I would need to do to get to where she was. I'd gone to AORN, had a meeting with someone on my CV, and both of them told me it would take me 7 years before I was ready for upper management. And so again, I'm like, all right, God, here it is. I'm at a crossroads. So after them telling me it would take 7 years, that's when I went back for my master's. That's when that phone call came in after 2 hours of being out there that I quit. I'm looking for a different job. And so I said, why do they want me? Why would they want me? I don't have that much experience in upper management, And the answer was, it was for a for-profit surgical hospital. So not an ambulatory surgery, but a true hospital. It was licensed as a hospital. We had inpatients, et cetera. And the answer was, the lead surgeon wants you because you have a background as a surgical tech.
Mhm.
and you know how to relate to people.
Ah,
That's why. It had
yeah,
nothing to do with my other experience. I mean, it had some to do, but
right.
that was the main reason.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. You know, following your journey, I could very much relate once again in that middle management, and kind of in the same way where I changed hospitals as a new nurse, and I kept asking questions. Why do you do it this way? Why do you do it that way? And they go, "Do you want the charge position?" Oh, sure. I'm young. Yeah, sure. And then I just continued to be, and I remember I had the rules and regs that were sitting in my door. And it was my job to enforce those rules and regs. And, lots of people didn't want to listen to a young nurse tell them what to do. And I spent many years in that. I spent 6 years in that middle management role. And one day I said, okay, I can't do this anymore. I don't want to be a babysitter. I don't want to be the bad guy. I don't want to be all of those things that I didn't. I did. This is not why I got in the OR. This is not. But I had to take a leap laterally. My kids were really, really young, and I had to pay the bill. So I needed something that was management pay, but I couldn't do the OR management anymore. And I took a leap into clinical IT because it was a management role. And they hired me, and it was like, why did you hire me as a clinical analyst, a senior clinical analyst? And the CIO said, we hired you because you had management experience. We could teach you the IT part, the EMR part. This is right where I hadn't even used an EMR. I knew how to work the computer for the employees to get in with their badges. I knew how to work those computers. And they said, we can teach you the computer part, but we can't teach you the management part. And so I took that. I completely got out of the OR for a good 5 years because it it kind of just fell in my lap when I was at my wit's end on management. I didn't know what was next. I couldn't go back. I couldn't go back into being a circulator. I couldn't afford to. And so it's interesting that you just there are these moments in time that you send up a prayer and you just go, I don't know what's next, and things show up. And so I love the fact that you had shared that because I have a very similar journey in that you just go, okay, I'm done with this. What's next?
Yeah.
I have no idea. And then poof, you answer the phone in an office, an abandoned office, and here you are all the way up into upper management. That I did not do. Um, so I commend you for that. So how long were you in upper management?
So I was in upper management for about 5.5 years,
Mhm.
close to 6. But during that time, I thought my, and it's a facade, you know, if you think that each level you're going to be able to make a bigger difference. So I kept thinking, well, if I have more education, I keep moving up, I'm going to be able to make more of a change and I'm going to have more of a say. And you know what? You just have a different boss.
Yeah.
You're at a different level. You have a different boss that you have to answer to. And I just found that as I was in that role, that I was not as effective as I wanted to be. And there were just so many things I'm like, do I really want to retire doing this? Do I really want to retire being in administration? And my thought was, no, this is a thankless job. It's thankless. No matter what you do, you still have people so unhappy with you, and not only that, but you, as a CNO, you're worried about patient care and ensuring that your nurses and their staff have what they need. But then you also have budgets and you have to be more concerned about the money end of things, which is hard for people that aren't in it,
Mhm.
have a hard time wrapping their head around. Not every CNO is in it for greed or CEO is in it for greed. And that's what we always hear on the
Right.
media. But that's not reality. The reality is trying to make things work with the budget that you have. So I thought, how really is now the time? I have my master's, I'm in the middle of this. This isn't, it's no longer fulfilling me.
Yeah.
What do I want to do? So in 2017, 2 years after I was in that role, I already started my company. I went back to school, started my company, and then I stayed for 2 to 3 more years. I don't know. It was a total of 5.5 years I was in that role. So in that time period is where I got to the point where, okay, I feel established enough in legal nurse consulting that I can walk away. And the reason why I got into it was because I thought, all right, there are so many things I'm frustrated over in healthcare that I can't change. And I'm tired of really people not listening to the things that we know. And I tend to do 98% plaintiff versus defense. And the reason for that is, number one, plaintiffs were the ones that just reach out, one knows another and the referrals start coming in. But also because I think that there are some actions that just aren't defendable. And it's like, having seen what we see, I want to see hurt people get justice. Right. If I can't change things anymore in healthcare, I can at least help the attorneys that are trying to get justice for those who've been hurt by healthcare. And at the same time, educate nurses. And you know what? This is what we're seeing on the other side. You thought that we were nurse ratchet. You didn't want to listen. You thought that we were too strict on things. Well, guess what? Now you're in a court of law.
Yep.
Because you didn't listen.
Yeah.
And so I just felt like this was an opportunity where I could be my own boss. I didn't have to, I could choose who I hire and have in my own circle if I want to do that. And I can set the culture for my own company. I can choose who my clients will be that I know will have an impact on change. And so that is really what got me to this point.
Right. It's part drive. I mean, clearly it's a big part drive, because if you look at your journey, it's you've been driven. Once you got that spark of like, okay, I can do this, then it was like the you can't stop me train. Okay, what's next? I'm ready. And everything that you say, I can completely resonate with, because there is that, you want to make a change, but you're so frustrated that you can't change everyone. You can't manage everyone. Not everyone is going to fall in line, even though you know that if they did, we would all be better.
Yeah.
So and then being able to control those things by starting your own company, and choosing who you want to work with, allows you to still be the advocate.
Yes.
Right? And be the advocate for patients, for attorneys who don't, may not be familiar with, and really to put together, your best case, which is what you've always wanted to do. I'm sure it's like, hey guys, here's the budget. Here's what, that you're putting together the best possible scenario for everyone, but not everybody sees it that way. So this is the way for you to control that piece of your story and to keep you sane.
Yes, that's a big one right there.
Yeah,
Keep you sane, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I really admire people that are in healthcare leadership that stick it out for years and are good at it.
Right.
I mean, I know some that are phenomenal at it, and I have no idea how they do it. But they do. They know how to talk with people well, how to manage all the stressors in their world, and make they have the respect of all of those that answer to them. They have the respect of those above them. They're just really good at it. I didn't want to keep, trying to figure everything out. I was just
Yeah.
like, you know what? Let's just
Throw in
change course.
the white flag. Throw in the towel. The white flag is just not meant for me. I mean, the same. I can totally relate to that. It's like there are those people, and I think in my 20 something years, I can name one person in as many hospitals I've been to. I can name one person that fits that description where they've really mastered. And she was actually the person that hired me when I was a surgical tech way back when, and she's still working. She went into retirement at one point, and then I hear, wait, she's over at wait, what? She is the one person that has the respect from everyone in our community, which, I live in LA, it's a big community. She has the respect from the staff, from the physicians, from administration,
Hmm.
one person in 20 something years. It just shows just how hard of a job that is. It really is, like you said, thankless, but it's just this skill that so few people have. It's just
And
hard.
Anna, I think you bring up a good point. I was thinking about this just this week, so it's weird that it would even come up. But the point of mentors are those that you respect, those that you can count one.
Mhm.
I was thinking back, how many of the people that I have been under
Mhm.
or or that I know in
Mhm.
healthcare, how many do I truly feel mentored me or that I respect?
Right.
And for me personally, it was one.
Mm.
The other one is actually a friend of mine who was a CNO when I was a CNO, and we became good friends. And she's the other one because she's doing great things.
Right.
So only one person out of my entire career in healthcare that I look back at and say, they have my utmost respect. They helped me
Right.
really, with my life. And that I think might be right there. Part of our issue is how many people can we, if you and I are looking at this saying we can only name one person,
I know.
a lot of that, if people don't have mentors and people they can look up to, that's a huge cry.
Mhm.
That's a huge problem.
It
And
absolutely is. Yeah, that's very interesting. Something that we don't
yeah,
think about every day, but it's true. And another thing that you had mentioned about choosing this role, not only being your own boss and being able to choose who you want to work with, but educating those nurse and healthcare employee, the techs for in my case, because I'm still in the OR 2 days a week. um being that person to say, hey guys, I know you don't want to listen to me, but I always use raise your right hand. Okay, so your answer is going to be when you're standing on, you're sitting on the stand in court, what is your answer going to be? And
hmm,
that is very eye-opening, and it's almost sad that we have to use that as a mentoring tool. But
hmm,
once I started doing this, I'll tell you, every Wednesday meeting, the eyes turn to me and it's like, okay, guys, let me tell you, So, I mean, I think in my case, I think it's given me more respect in that sense. I think people want mentors. We all want mentors. We want mentors
right,
to show us in a way that's not talking down to us or, we all want to be mentored. We all want show me. And that's my biggest thing with them. I say, I've been in this for a long time, but if you're going to tell me something that makes complete sense, I'm gonna listen to you. I
right,
am not I
right.
am not the say all here. Tell me something that makes sense and I will listen to you. And I hope that for the next 20 years you can say the same thing and not that you already know, you know. But I do think that we all want mentors in a way that respect us, that and it's sad that we've kind of gone through that whole journey and we could name one or two people.
I had more surgeons that actually mentored me and that I felt close to, that were willing to take the time to explain to me, what was going on, or why they wanted something different, right?
Mhm.
And now the same thing with what I do now. I feel that I have closer, better relationships with a lot of the attorneys that I work with.
Mhm.
The respect from them, but also just this great relationship where some of them have been mentors. As I've helped them, they've also mentored me in business, in how
Right.
to talk with other lawyers, what attorneys look for,
Mhm.
what, how to do my job well.
Right.
And in healthcare, that's what we look for.
Mhm.
And a lot of times don't necessarily, as you and I have said, get what we need.
Yeah.
But I have found, at least with my clients, I have a great group of clients. And after being in a more uptight, at times, right? The OR can be
Yeah.
tons of fun, but it can also get very serious, as we know,
Mhm. Mhm.
intense. After being in that and then dealing with, the other side that we're in now, I love it.
Yeah.
I
So
absolutely.
so I want to hear more about how you got started. I know you took a course, you decided you were starting your company, you understood your mission in life, right? But
Mhm.
those relationships, because I think that that's what a lot of people that are listening to this podcast, they want to know how were you able to build your business and create those relationships with the attorneys? Because it is a mystery when you're first starting. You're entering a totally different world than what you've come from. And I know for me, it was a mystery of like, how do you talk to attorneys? Are they any different? Are they so if you could share a little bit about your story and how you started and how you've built these relationships and how you've been able to maintain them. And a little piece of mentoring to the legal nurses out there that are just like wide-eyed and go, I don't know if I can do
Yeah.
this.
Well, I remember the first attorney that ever called me. I had put my name out on a site to be an expert. I was still working as the CNO, and they called me. And I remember not knowing how to talk to him. I said, "Do I call you Mister? Do I call you by your first name?" I mean, and he laughed. He said, "You call me by my first name." But I had no
Mhm.
clue. I mean, I had already gone through the course, I had my business
Mhm.
started, but I didn't know how to talk to them. I thought, this is ridiculous. I deal with surgeons every day. If I can deal with surgeons, I can deal with attorneys.
Right.
And I had to give myself that self talk, right? Because out of anyone that you have to give an answer to in the hospital system, who is the hardest one? A surgeon.
Yep.
They want to know answers. And when they ask, they want it now, right? So I thought, okay, stop it. Just stop. I had to give myself these little talks, right?
Mhm.
And so I'm like, just go out there and be yourself. But how are they going to get to know me? So I stepped outside my comfort zone. I'm like, I emailed one guy, and actually a whole group, and the one attorney of the group contacted me and said, that's great. We want you. So I started working with him off of a cold email, but then I noticed his partners. I thought, well, I want to work with them too. And so this one partner I was reaching out to, and he wasn't responding really. I mean, he was nice, right? I'm like, so I went online and I looked at when he was going to be in court.
Mhm.
And I met him on the court steps. I went watched his trial. And then afterwards, I wrote up a whole thing on what I saw that went wrong in court and why he lost. And so after I took him to lunch, and knew that our relationship was okay, I said, "Hey, I made a report for you. Take it or leave it."
Mhm.
He called me a week later and said, "Thank you."
Yeah.
And that started our relationship. So to this day, I still have four of four of them now out of that group that work with me consistently. Another time, I just, one of my latest things that I did 2 years ago was somebody in our state was turning 50. And I saw him on LinkedIn and I knew who he was and we had connected, but I hadn't done anything. So I saw he was turning 50. I'm like, I want to come throw a birthday party for you. And he's like, what? I said, yeah, I want to take you out for your 50th. And so I brought party beads. I brought, like all these cute little things that didn't cost me much money, but to make this a big thing. And I left that restaurant with a case. So the idea was to get to know him and to have fun. And I told him that. I said, I just want to get to know you and, make this a special event for you. But sure, if you have a case, I'll take it, And then others I had to send letters to, and, for 2 years. 2 years of reaching out. And, one reached out to me and said, you don't know who I am, but another attorney gave me your name. And I had never worked with the other attorney, but I'd been sending him things for 2 years. So someone I had never even worked with, but had marketed to, was sending me business. And so when people say they don't know how to market, I say use every means possible, but know who you want to market to, right? So I would go online, I would find out who are the people I want to work with. And I would start working with those, instead of just throwing it into the universe and hope that something sticks. No, who is it?
Yeah. I love that.
And then go after it. Don't take no for an answer. So, and not everyone is as outgoing as you and I are, Anna. But that's okay, because not every attorney is that way either, right? So people are like, well, how are there enough attorneys? Because not every personality fits well. And I've had that where I've had clients that I did a good job for, but it just didn't feel right. We didn't connect as well as I thought was good. And so it's been, well, maybe my friend would be a better fit for you. Or, I'm not going to send any more marketing stuff, and we'll see where this goes in the future. But just don't stop. You'll find your tribe. You'll find the right people that fit for you if you don't give up and you actually go out there and do it.
Yeah.
You have to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And I love the fact that you've shared, it's really kind of out of the box, because I think that we hear, email marketing or LinkedIn. And then I know, since doing this podcast, I get a lot of messages that, I've been on LinkedIn for, many months now, and I just don't have my first attorney client. And you have just shared that there are more ways to skin a cat, right? That's the thing. Yeah, more ways to skin a cat by saying, okay, maybe there is this one person that stands out that there's something about that office or that firm that stands out. And then it's brilliant that you took him out for his birthday. I'm an extrovert, but I am not that much of an extrovert. I mean, I'm a pretend extrovert. So that terrifies me. So I love the fact that you did that. That is amazing. But really, it's about visibility, right? So, so you were visible by saying, I'm going to take you out to dinner. But also, I love the fact that you say, don't stop. If there's someone there that you just like really, really love what they stand for. And that reminds me of actually an attorney that I first reached out to in the very beginning that I really love what they stood for. I sent all my marketing stuff, never heard from them. But it reminds me that I want to go back to that because they're local and they, I really just loved what they stood for, and I just let it go. It just shows you that persistence in a good, genuine way creates visibility. I'm going to keep showing up. They're going to remember me because I keep showing up. I'm not going to keep pitching them, but you show up in a way that stands out. It's very easy to stand out. I just read this. Someone had posted this actually twice. Two different people posted this yesterday about handwritten cards.
Yep.
And I mean, it's like
Yeah.
such an easy way to stand out. Handwritten cards in any business, in any, community connection, because we just don't receive them anymore. That is another good way to stand out. So if you say, you know, pick pick 5 people, I don't know, pick 5 offices that you really, really want, right? And you just say, I'm not going to stop until I get a no, right? In
Yeah.
fact, in fact, there's a book up here. It should be right about there. That's a go for no. And it's simply that, that your goal is actually to receive as many no's as you possibly can, because when you receive those no's, you're closer to the yeses, right? And that just shows that you've taken action.
And I think
Love that.
too, for those that feel bad about not getting a bunch of people off of LinkedIn, Anna, out of all my clients, I have clients in 15 states. I have the least amount off of LinkedIn.
Yeah, I can
And
see
there are
that.
people that have built their business on LinkedIn, and
Mhm.
I envy them. I
Mhm.
do. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, you guys suck in a good
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
But just for those that haven't had that happen, it's okay. Have I gotten business off LinkedIn? Yes, I have. But not the majority. The
Yeah.
majority of my business has been me hoofing it,
Yeah.
me calling, me showing up in person, me sending notes, me just being authentic, though, right?
Mhm.
Being authentic,
Mhm.
that I have something that I know I can help you with. And because I want to work with you so badly that I have been pestering you for 2 years,
Yeah.
shows that I'm not going to give up,
Yeah. I love that
right?
so much. Yeah. No, I love the fact that you
So,
shared that. And I can say the same thing about myself. It has not been LinkedIn. I've only really dove into LinkedIn in the last 6 months, but the majority of mine have not been. And I have not been doing this as long as you have at all. So I feel blessed that my persistency has paid off as well. But yeah, it hasn't been on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is fun for me. I know, yeah, you probably say the same thing. LinkedIn is fun. It's fun for me. Um but the persistence, I think, is really what it comes down to. You made a
mhm.
decision that you're going to continue to be visible and genuine and show up in your way. And again, it doesn't have to be like, it's almost of a relief where you're giving people permission to say, hey, you don't have to blanket everyone.
No,
um Pick some, and then be persistent and go for no. I'm going to add that to your tagline there. Go for no.
go for
um
no. Yeah.
because it feels good. And also, I think, going back to the beginning of this subject, is that you've built these really great relationships with the attorneys, and that probably has a lot to do with how you presented yourself and how you marketed yourself and how you connected with them in the beginning, and building those relationships that continued because they knew you were a genuine person. You're not just a number. You're not just that nurse that keeps sending me emails. Um, so I love that you've given people permission in a different way than I think that a lot of us have thought that, oh, this must be how you do it. This must be how you do it because they were successful doing it this way. There are, and the more that I have these interviews, there are so many ways that you can build a business in this
Mhm.
world. But again, you have to be brave enough to take that leap and just say, you know what is I do have that same self-talk a bit, where it's like, what's the worst that could happen, right? Is
Mhm.
a no. The worst that can happen is a no. And I did send out an email and the name was wrong. And I searched it again and I was like, wait, no, but that's the name. And she had replied back, if you can't get my name right, how do you think that you could possibly do a case for me? And I was like, okay, wait a minute. Normally I would just let it go and I just said, well, I really apologize, but that is the name that I had. I was like, I am not that dumb. But you know what? She yelled at me in email and I moved on from it. And I think it's a funny story now. So the word,
Yeah, Anna, the same thing happened to me. And it just so happened that there were two law firms, right, with the same names.
yeah,
And I emailed one and
yeah,
called the person, and it was a female attorney that bit my head off.
yeah,
And in an email, like,
yeah,
forget it.
yeah,
You've lost your chance with
yeah,
this. You didn't get a name right. I'm thinking, okay, I just feel like I
okay,
was in the OR,
yeah,
but
yeah, exactly.
whatever.
Been there, done that.
So you just,
Whatever. Moving
you
on.
apologize and you move on.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think, Anna, I just wanted to say this to you is that you might have only been on LinkedIn 6 months.
Mm.
You have made a footprint. And if
Oh,
you and I have this conversation after a year,
yeah.
you're going to be telling me you have a lot of business off LinkedIn
Thank you.
because you are very good at it. You're
Thank you.
extremely good at it.
I appreciate
So,
that. I
yeah,
appreciate that. I will say that part of my journey was building an online community business way back when. I built a network marketing business for those that want to know. It was a network marketing business. And I built it very successfully enough to walk away from nursing for 3 years. But doing that, I built it using social media on the other platforms. And I had a podcast and I had a YouTube channel and all those things. And I tell you though, having that coming over into this world was a bit challenging because it's like, what can I share? What do I share? I mean, I was sharing health and fitness and me working out and all of those things. This is not the same business, right? So I was very
yeah,
hesitant on social media. And that's one of the reasons why I started the podcast is because I had started a podcast before. I knew how to do it. I knew that my mission was simply to have conversations, but it was an opportunity for me to share something on social media. I didn't know. And the more that I started to pay attention to LinkedIn, the more that I said, wait a minute, this is just like over there on those other platforms, only in a professional environment that I can just use what I learned before and utilize it over here. But also knowing I don't know if this is going to work. I don't know if it's going to fall flat. All I know is I'm going to have fun over here like I used to over there with a whole different new group of people. And the connection and the relationships I've built on LinkedIn are the greatest for that reason. And that's maybe if that's any permission, I appreciate the kudos on that because my goal on there is really just to figure out how to build really cool relationships and really great relationships with people, knowing that, all right, maybe my name will be seen more often the more relationships, the more conversations I have.
yeah.
But if it turns into attorney clients, great. If not, it gives me an outlet. Really, honestly, it gives me an outlet to connect with people, and that's what I love. And there was a little interim between me doing this health and fitness and me doing legal nursing. I really wanted to build a business, and so I actually built a coaching business that was teaching small business owners how to build their businesses using Facebook groups because that's how I was able
Oh,
to build my businesses building Facebook groups. And
yeah,
I did it for a couple years. I sold a course, I did the whole thing, but I was like unfulfilled. But the best part about that is I taught how to build communities. So here it's like, okay, let's use those same skills. It's just building a community. And what the podcast has come into the play of even more of a community that I expected. I did not expect that. I literally was like, I just want to have conversations with really cool people and hear their story so that I can share it with other people and so that they can hear their story. And that I guess that's a part of the community building. Um, but I think that we all win when we can build a community like this, even if it doesn't show that, the purpose of being on LinkedIn is may not necessarily be attorney clients or, subcontracting or whatever. It's really this
Yeah.
community that has come out of it that's just really supportive, and that is something I didn't expect, but I love, and that's what I hope that continues to grow over the time. So yes, over those years I would love to have attorney clients out of that, but I also would love to just like have this great community that just people are just happy to be able to speak about, and so
Yes.
that's really my goal, and that's a big reason why I wanted to have you on here because I watched on LinkedIn and you show up for people and people respect you, and your what you share on LinkedIn is very um is about you and your story, and that's what I like. I mean, I want to hear people's stories. I love the fact that people give tips, but I love people's stories. I love to hear where they came from. And so you've always stood out, and I see you on other in the comments, and you being a very genuine person. I was like, you come from the same clearly you come from the same cloth because we both are in the same specialty, but also you show up um you show up with more intention than just selling yourself. You know what I mean? And that shows. And that's why I'm glad that I have you here. So,
Well, the reason why I liked LinkedIn so much is because I feel challenged. I think that, I mean, where else can you go where you are you're connected to a bunch of people that may or may not ever say hi to you in reality,
yeah.
but on LinkedIn they will.
Yeah.
And I'm challenged daily. There are people that I'm hooked up to that I'm like, oh my word. There are a couple of attorneys, especially that I follow,
Yeah.
just because I'm like, I'm not an attorney,
Yeah.
but I'm following you because your business
Yeah.
sentiments make sense to me. And I'm not talking about going after money. I'm talking about like
Yeah.
actual business things. Because for me, it's,
Right.
yes, I want to make money. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But most nurses, that's not our main motivation. Oh, I want to make $1 billion.
Yeah.
I want money.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Money is good. I have nothing wrong with, there's nothing wrong with money. But if you don't have that personal touch and that personal growth, that growth I hunger for. And so
Yeah.
when you get challenged
Oh
by
yeah.
other people, I really appreciate that. And thank you so much for the kind words.
Yeah.
That
No,
was
it's
very
true.
nice.
It's what you see. And the other thing I wanted to say was that we could look at each other and say, okay, you're you have an aura background, I have an aura background. You've been in healthcare a long time, and so have I. And we could say we're competition, right? Like, oh, you're vying for the same attorneys I'm vying for. You want the OR cases, I want the OR cases, and that's what you could see on the surface, right? But I believe that it sounds so cheesy, but we all lock arms together. And I think that we're more powerful of a community. And like you said earlier, is that not everyone's personality fits everyone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it doesn't really matter if we're competition. If you and I are having a conversation that's lifting up nursing
Mm-hmm.
and caring for our patients and caring for our fellow nurses, then everyone wins. There is no competition. It is literally like, how can we give our community a really great voice, right? It's being genuine, it's being
Mm-hmm.
non-pitchy, non-salesy. We just want to show up and have a conversation, and yes, be challenged. I can also relate to that because all of these books, with the exception of maybe 5 of them, are all personal growth, personal development, or business books.
Yeah.
So I can definitely relate that because we both want to build a business that we're proud of, and that um we're proud of building it in a way that's genuine to us, right? And that
Right. And not only that, but I think and you hit on something very important for other nurses to know. So LinkedIn is flooded with legal nurses. Like there are a million of us, especially since COVID, right? So many people walking away. And tomorrow I'm actually doing a video on that for LinkedIn about how to know that you're finding your path.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I no longer look at it as competition, when somebody else is an OR nurse or whatever, because seriously, we all have different paths and we're going to connect with people. There are just certain people that you are magnetic with and that you work well with. Correct. Behind the scenes or as a testifying expert or whatever. And not only that, but we might have OR experience, but then we have other things too. Like you have a whole background, plethora of things you've done that I've never done in my life, right? That help you in certain ways. Right. And there are things that I do that are a little different. So I think that everyone needs to remember about their individuality. And I did a thing for ALNC last year where we talked about social media marketing and the pitfalls of it, psychologically, what it does to people and how it's so easy to compare. And the idea being that finding ways to challenge yourself by being with these people that know more than you or whatever, but not losing sight of your own identity. Don't lose sight of who you are. And when you start to feel that you're sinking and you're losing your own identity, that's when you need to get off of the platform for a little bit and reset your mind. Who are you? What do you want? Where do you come from? Where are you going? And then get back on.
Yeah, I love that advice. I could not agree with it more. Is once you find yourself, it's almost like a force. When you find yourself forcing yourself to fit into a box that doesn't feel right, is the moment, like you said, take a step back. I do this all the time. I have to do this self check all the time because it's very easy to get sucked into how other people are doing things. And well, they must be doing it the right way because they're successful. So I'm going to do it like them, which then starts to feel forced and not you. And then when you take a step back and you go, I just need to just show up and be me. I mean, I've spent money on marketing, coaching, and all of that. And it's so funny is that when at the end of the day, it really comes down to, am I forcing myself to be someone that I'm not, or am I doing this intentionally? Because it will always show. And it just doesn't feel right. And like you said, it takes its toll on you mentally when you don't feel like you're the successful one. We all have stories behind the social media posts, So I love that you shared that. I think that that's a really great piece of advice for everyone out there who is trying to market themselves on social media. Everybody's different. There is no competition, and really keep that self-check in play. And if it doesn't feel right or feels forced, then pull back, jump back in to where you feel like you're doing it the right way, your way, right? Yeah. Okay, well, we could talk all day long, and I really appreciate everything that you've shared. Is there any other piece of advice? I want to also mention that you too have a podcast out there, right? Can you share a little bit about that and any last piece of advice and where we can find you?
Sure. So my podcast is the Centerpoint Podcast, where nursing and law unite. And that is produced by the Legal Podcast Network. And you can find me on Apple, Spotify, any of them. Or you can find me on YouTube at Jacqueline Maki. The last bit of advice that I would give is do you. Do you. If there's something about when they say get out of the box, it doesn't mean get out of the box to become like someone else's clone, right? Okay. Get out of the box means stretch your own being while still being you. So don't try to be Jackie or Anna. Don't worry that your numbers on LinkedIn aren't at 6,000, per post, or, that you're just starting and you're like, oh my word, I don't have anything yet. All I can say is every day recenter, figure out who you are, keep your goals in mind. And if you put one foot in front of the other and you challenge yourself daily, step out of the box a little bit, then a year you can look back and say, this is how far I've come. And we all know that. We know that with weight loss. We know that with getting in shape. We know that with better healthy eating, right? I mean, we know this. It's the same thing when building your business. It's the same thing. It's just that we lose track of that and we mingle it all together. At least, I don't know for everyone. I know this about nurses. In our profession, that's what I know.
Yeah. I love that. I love that advice. I totally agree with it. All right. Well, thank you again for being a part of this podcast. And I can't wait to hear the feedback. And I'm sure your inbox will be flooded with lots of amazing people saying how much you've helped them. So thank you again for being here.
Well, thank you for reaching out to me, Anna. I'm so glad you did. And I look forward to reading your posts every day.
And same with you. Thank you for joining us in this fun conversation on the Limitless Legal Nurse Consulting podcast. I hope you found this episode as inspiring and empowering as I always do. And I hope that you share this episode with your friends. If you enjoyed it, I would love it if you could leave us a review or comment, as I would love to share them in the future episodes. Or hop on over into my DMs and send me a quick message. I can be found on Instagram at anna.b.gray, on my website at limitlesslnc.com, and over on LinkedIn at Anna Gray. And I want you to remember, you are limitless. Until next time.